Hi, I'm Libby Gibson, Town Manager. Welcome to What's Going On in Town Government. For our visitors, we have a very active town government, and we have a 5-member elected Board of Selectmen that meets in the summertime twice a month in June, July, and August, and weekly pretty much the rest of the year. And for our residents, you already know we have a very active town government, and you pretty much know what we do, I hope. Anyway, at the meeting this week, board meeting last night, we had an update on the Massasoit Bridge. Massasoit Bridge is one of the 3 bridges on the island that, including this Concept footbridge, that has had some recent issues. It pretty much failed a state inspection back in maybe June, and we've been working to get the bridge engineered and reconstructed, and well, not reconstructed so much as fixed. Anyway, to make a long story short, beginning, I believe, I didn't bring it with me, next Monday the 14th through Wednesday the 16th, that bridge will be closed to vehicle traffic entirely so that the bridge can be repaired. So
this is out in Matticat, right?
This is out in Matticat, and if you are a Matticat resident, hopefully you know all about this by now because your resident associations have told you, because we sent them a bunch of information about it.
All right.
In other items, I'm going to focus on the ones that had the most discussion. We had our sewer project extension contractor team present. We are in September going to be starting a sewer extension project called the Nantucket Harbor Shimo Plus Parcels Sewer Extension Project. Our contractor is Robert B. Auer. It's a firm from Harwich, Mass. They were introduced at our meeting last night. We discussed the construction schedule. We discussed some night work that's going to be happening at the very beginning of the project. The beginning of the project will start at the Vesper Lane Surfside intersection and immediate area. The idea of the night work is to get a lot of the work done all night, overnight, for maybe 4 or 5 nights, hopefully less, but you never know, so that we don't have to do so much during the day. Otherwise, it could take a while, and we all know that's a very difficult intersection.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So
that's just the first.
That's the first part. Then they're going to move down towards McLean, Lane, Tashima, Green Meadow, Bayberry, over off Tacoma, and then out to Shimo. So on the town website, there will be very regular updates about this project, and people who are in the project area, you should know by now if you're in the project area or not, and you're about to all get a letter from the town that tells you about how you will be connecting and all that kind of thing. And if you have any questions about it after that, we've also had 4 informational sessions, a general one, and then neighborhood specific. If you still have questions, email sewerproject@nantucket-ma.gov. And again, this is all on the town website. So so that took a little bit of time because there was some discussion about the project itself. We also had an update about our island home facility improvements. We have had some capital funds appropriated over the last 2 or 3 years for facility improvements at our island home, and we got an update about where those are in the process, and they are all underway. So we got a good update about that.
That was like $1 million, right? I mean,
it's about $1 million.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a good amount of money.
Some of the discussion had to do with the fact that the building may not last the upgrades. Is that correct?
There was some discussion about that. I don't think we know that definitively right now.
Okay.
But it's certainly an issue that we need to
it really
watch.
Is, huh? Yeah.
Our biggest thing last night was discussing the November 6th, 2017 special town meeting warrant articles. And the reason we're having a special town meeting in November has to do with retail marijuana establishments, and in connection with the state law that was adopted last November 2016, statewide. All cities and towns are discussing this right now. So to make a long story short, and there is some information, I think, on the town website about this, or there will be very shortly. There are likely to be at least 3 articles on the warrant that pertain to this. One will be a moratorium on retail marijuana establishments in the town of Nantucket. A moratorium is a temporary ban, temporary suspension of the law for a period of time. The period of time we are seeking is through December 2018, and the reason for that is to get our ducks in a row to make sure that we have appropriate bylaws and rules and regulations in place to begin licensing and permitting and approving retail marijuana establishments. There are a lot of moving parts on this. The legislation is finished, but there are a lot of rules and regulations that have yet to be adopted by the state, specifically the Cannabis Control Commission. And there are many questions flying around from all cities and towns about this. So there are some rules and regulations that are not going to be out until March, May, June of next year, of 2018. So our town meeting schedule does not correspond to the state's timelines for all of those things. Without getting into all of the detail of that, we're going to seek a moratorium so that we can, again, get bylaws, rules, and regulations in place before the licensing process begins. We are also going to have a zoning bylaw to set out in what districts retail marijuana establishments will be allowed and what the special permit process will entail. And we are going to put on the warrant a local option, an article that is a local option tax on retail marijuana sales of 3%, which is allowed by the legislation. At the 2017 annual town meeting, we already did this at 2%. The legislation now in its final form allows you to go to 3%. So we're going to go to 3. The other discussion that the board had was about a general bylaw that cities and towns are allowed to adopt having to do with limitations on the establishments themselves, the number of establishments, and some other issues like whether or not cultivating facilities are allowed, testing facilities, and a couple of other parameters within which municipalities may act locally. However, that requires not only a town meeting vote, but a ballot vote. And the board was iffy about whether or not it wanted to put on this general bylaw because we may not have the information we need to put into a general bylaw article by the time we need to have our special town meeting. And I know this is very confusing. We were all kind of went down one road, got turned back.
Making sure that you got the information.
We're trying to really get the information out there. And
now this is a warrant. This is going on. People have to vote to make this happen. If
correct.
Not, if it doesn't happen, it's a free for all.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
As of when?
Thank you, Gino, for mentioning that. So, by April 1st, 2018, if your municipality, your town or city does not have a zoning bylaw in place or other bylaws in place that regulate in any way retail marijuana establishments, they can pretty much go anywhere without regulation. Then they go through a state licensing process, and there will be, we don't know them all right now, state requirements for the establishments.
Shouldn't we know those before we decide exactly what we want to do?
Well, thank you, because that's why we would be seeking the moratorium, because we won't know all of that probably by the time we would need to put a warrant article on the annual town meeting. And in any case, the annual town meeting is on April 3rd. The state deadline is April 1st. Even if we moved the annual town meeting back a couple of weeks to be before April 1st, your bylaws have to be approved by the Attorney General. And that is not a couple of week process. That's at best a couple of months process. So we had our town council at our meeting last night, for the third time in to keep going over this. It's a little bit like health insurance. You got to hear it over and over for it to sink in. And every time there's a little bit of a different iteration of what's happening. So what we also heard last night is that town council sends out a regular advisory on different legal updates to its clients, and we are going to be getting one either by the end of this week or early next week, and we will probably post that online. We also were talking a little bit this morning internally about maybe we need to sort of send out a staff group out into the community or to meet with people who want to be met with about this to educate them about it or answer questions at least.
One question that kept coming through my mind was, I mean, and fair enough, the board was, you know, pretty intense about what they should do and what they shouldn't do, but shouldn't we be looking at like the state of Colorado? They've gone through this entire thing already.
Well,
we could learn so much from them.
Yeah, well, I think the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, state legislative people have gone to Colorado and learned about, so I think the idea was that they've worked some of those lessons into the legislation.
Right.
But there hasn't been a lot of local, you know, it's not a local thing, it's a state effort.
But I'm sure there are local towns in Colorado that have different ideas about how they want to control it too.
Yeah, I'm sure. And whether or not they're allowed to do that,
exactly.
I don't really know.
Okay.
So, I mean, Gino, this is one thing that we've had to become immersed in.
Yeah.
Never mind the 150 other things that we're working on.
Well, you know, I think we're just going to do it. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the board did talk about a ban.
You can't control it. I think some people would like to not even have it here at all on the board.
Well,
and
that may be, and there may be people out in the community who feel the same way, but the fact is that Nantucket voted yes.
Yeah.
A majority of people here, of voters who voted yes on this legislation. And into the state legislation is worked a provision that if your town voted yes and you want to do a ban, you have to do extra voting in order to get the ban into effect.
Didn't she mention that as far as the percentage of people who voted in favor of it, it was really high?
Well, it was about 60%. So if you want to say that's really high.
It's pretty high.
I call it higher than 50.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I would call it,
if you're if you win the vote by 60%, that's pretty good.
I think you've clearly won.
Yeah, you clearly won.
Anyway, so there's going to be more information that comes out about this. Other warrant articles that the board discussed included, we're going to be doing a supplemental appropriation for the fire station. We are going to be seeking to acquire and possibly fund the purchase of, a piece of property at the corner of Washington and Francis Street. The idea would be that the town would purchase something there, potentially, or in another way acquire, so that we could round the corner for more ease of trucks and larger vehicles to get around there. You know,
really?
Yeah. Like we've done already at the two other intersections at Union and Francis.
Right.
And Union and Orange near.
Okay. This one would be where?
Francis and Washington.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the sort of first one if you're heading out of town.
Right.
There was
that means you would have to knock out those little cottages there, right? We'd have to buy those out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some way. So we're not done with this discussion yet. It's a little early on. But the idea.
Everybody's talking about the school intersection, though. That's the one that seems to be.
The school intersection?
Well, the one where the high school is, where I don't know what you call that. Is that Sparks Ave?
Four corners?
Yeah, the four corners, Sparks Ave.
What about? Oh, you mean just there's a lot of traffic there?
The traffic there is just.
Well, that's bad, but that's not the only one.
Oh, I know.
Anyway, that's an article that we're going to be putting on. This is more of an authorization article, and the details will be dealt with as we get them. What else did we have? We had some zoning articles from planning. There was an article on the 2017 annual town meeting warrant called Article 75, which was a very big article, and there were some sort of last minute amendments to it that people were concerned about. So planning has broken Article 75 into 5 separate articles, and those will be on. There's a real estate article and some budgetary items to deal with now rather than later because of projects that are in the works. And there are citizen articles, 9 citizen articles that have been submitted. So at the next board meeting, August 23rd, the board will be adopting the warrant, and then it will start going through the rest of the warrant process leading up to the special town meeting on November 6th. So that was a big discussion. After that, on our agenda, I was supposed to be giving my monthly town management activity report, but I agreed to forfeit that item because it was late and people were cranky and tired. And you know, Gino, I love doing my report.
Oh, I noticed.
So I was very dejected and disappointed that I wasn't able to give it, but it was for the good of, it was for the greater good. So I gave it up.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you though about that, the end of the meeting there. There was a little bit of contention about spending the money on
Okay.
traffic
So
enhancement.
this was continuing the discussion of the special town meeting. There is a citizen warrant article that has to do with establishing a DIF, D-I-F,
What is
District
that?
Improvement Financing. And we've talked about this a little bit before on here. District Improvement Financing sets aside a certain area where there is about to be some development that will increase taxes in that area because of the development. The valuation of the properties will go up because of the development. So the idea behind a DIF is to capture that incremental increase and use it for specific projects that directly relate to the development. You can also simply seek voter approval to fund the projects that you would be doing as a result of the development. Maybe you'd be doing them anyway, maybe not. So there are a series of improvements that have been identified in the Old South Road corridor, ranging from improvements at the Milestone Rotary to constructing a roundabout at Old South and Fairgrounds to other improvements in the area, a median, I can't remember, but a bunch of other things. There's something in Amelia and possibly a roundabout down at the other end, the Macy, the Airport Road, Old South area. So the discussion had to do with if you adopt the DIF, there are a number of things you have to have in place. One of them is a development plan that specifies all of the projects in detail that would be funded through the DIF. The other way you could do that is just like I just said, seek voter approval to raise those funds anyway, because they're all going to come from the same place ultimately. So the board went back and forth a bit about the pros and cons, and they're going to be discussing it again on the 23rd. So I think I left with the idea that we would potentially put in a placeholder article to see what sums the town might vote to appropriate for these improvements. And as we get closer to the special town meeting, we would understand better what they are and how much they will cost and what those costs are based on. So it might have gotten a little bit contentious, but I think it was more that it was getting late. People have mostly worked all day, and now we're into the night to go over all these things. And this is a frustration that comes out from time to time when you have a meeting at the end of the day, and there's a lot of sometimes complicated items. I mean, this was after the marijuana discussion, and it's very complex and confusing, the marijuana discussion.
Oh, yeah.
So people were coming off of that and getting into another complicated discussion. So
especially when it's heightened right now with traffic the way it is. People really want to see things get
It's
done.
August, and it's hot out, and people, the Board of Selectmen get a lot of constituent complaints about things when people are thinking of them and they want to complain right away. And so, they take a lot of abuse. And so, give them a break. They're doing their best. So I think we ended up okay at the end of the meeting, and I threw them the bone about we don't have to go through my management report.
Oh, yeah, they like that.
Yeah.
They were a little disappointed, but.
They weren't that disappointed. They weren't as disappointed as I was. I was crushed. But it's online if anybody wants to read it. So what else? We got the Boston Pops this weekend.
Ooh.
We've got a massively crowded harbor. And I noticed in the paper this morning that the harbor master was commended for her work. Thank you, Sheila. And the DPW director. Thank you, Rob. So that's
great.
Really nice. I haven't gotten through the rest of the paper. You go right to the editorial in my line of work.
Of course.
You go right to the editorial.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Then you go to the letters, but I haven't even gotten to the letters yet, so I don't know exactly what they are. Then you go to here and there. See what's going on with Marianne.
I see.
Then you look at the articles. Actually, I guess the first thing you do is see who's above the fold. That's the first thing you do, and you hope it's not you, unless it's something really great.
What about the police log? Don't you?
I never. That's
you
if
already know already, don't you?
No, I don't. But I hardly ever get there.
Okay.
That's not my first thing.
Out
yes,
first.
I know. So we got the Boston Pops. The selectmen are not meeting next week. We're on our summer schedule. They meet twice a month, June, July, and August. I think I already said that. And after the 23rd, which is the board's next meeting, we resume. Did I already talk about this? I feel like
but it's good to remind people.
Okay.
When are we back?
We resume weekly meetings on September 13th.
Wow, that's 3 weeks. Another 3 weeks.
It's it's about that. That's about what we do.
Okay.
For the summer schedule. It's really hard to get people interested the last couple weeks of August into that, right before Labor Day.
I think everybody
People are
just
so
can't wait.
busy and.
They just really can't wait for September.
Really? I could wait for September.
You could.
I love July and August here. And I don't mind the people, the traffic, yes, but you plan around it and you just, just try not to go at a really busy time or take the shuttle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be off island tomorrow for some stuff, and you want to see bad traffic. We say here is bad. Go to Hyannis, which I'm going to be going to tomorrow.
I can't stand traffic.
Nobody can. Who likes traffic? Nobody.
I just don't.
Nobody likes traffic, Gino.
It drives me crazy.
I know, but you take a deep breath when you get in your car. And also, here's a tip. 1 word. 3 words. Use your blinker. Use your blinker. That's what it's for. To tell people when you're going to turn. Don't just turn.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the problem is about not using the blinker. Just use it.
Okay.
And also pick up your trash, please.
Yes.
What else?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks very much. See you next time.